still. Eagle flew out of the night.
I'm just fed up with the way they ruin this land, basically. They just can't be allowed to do it anymore. They con people, you know, they lie, and they just don't care where they go. You know, they choose some of the most beautiful spots in this country and they just ruin them, and they're not allowed to do it.
I was feeling part of the scenery. I walked right out of the machinery. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Hey, he said, grab your things, I'm gonna take you home. Hey, back home.
Everybody who's on this protest today is going to come back and carry on this protest. It's going to make a strong statement on the TV news and on radio to people who are in Bath, and I think more local people get involved. It carries on. I think generally it was a very, very positive day, and it can't help but get bigger from now on.
These are not criminals. No charge has been proffered against them. Many have been held for over 6 months, if not longer, in these and other detention centres. They're guilty of nothing. But the psychological pressure that they've been put under, the abuse that they've been given, the lack of freedoms they've been given, the lack of access to the media, to television, to radio, to telephones, all those kind of things, all add up to a feeling of isolation and a feeling of pressure. That's why we're here today, not just in support of those and all the other people that are taking hunger strike action to draw attention to their cases, but to question the whole principle of imprisoning anybody for having the temerity to seek asylum in this country. I want to see this place shut. I want to see Haslar shut. I want to see every single person that's seeking asylum in this country freed and out and open so their cases can be properly considered.
GATT helps the rich get richer. What about the third world? GATT helps the rich get richer. What about the third world? Protesting just to show that the sort of people in there, Mrs Thatcher, Laurent Fabius, top politicians, top business people, British Aerospace and others, are the only people who've added input into GATT. The rest of us, workers, the environment, third world farmers, have all been left out. GATT is stitched up entirely by top business people and top politicians. In their interests, selectively, the rest of us get left out. Well, there's this great myth of free trade, but unfortunately it means only freedom for large companies to invest where they like, pay the workers as little as they like, disregard the environment, kick people off their land. It's their freedom, the freedom of workers to organise strikes, the freedom of people to protect their land, protect their environment. That goes out the window. It's rewriting international law in favour of large companies and against the interests of the majority of people in the first world and in the third world.
This is what they do to their shareholders. This is what they do to developing countries. Is it about time for a change and a rational response? I think so.
Thanks a lot. Well, I locked myself to the microphone, and unfortunately Group 4 couldn't find a way of getting it out without cutting it off. Had to cut off the handcuffs.
Look at that! Nice one!
I'm a shareholder of Warld's Bank. This is my property.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say how outrageous it is that shareholders in a bank can be bodily chucked out for asking an extremely simple question, like being shown a report that he claims was done. And if the report's done, why can't we see it? And I don't believe that it has been done, and I believe he was lying to the shareholders, and that's why we were chucked out. And it's a bloody outrage.
We've got to go out there and walk where there's cars polluting every space, and now you want to add to it by putting more on. We don't need more roads.
Come on, downstairs.
No.
Sorry. No, in the hall. All of you. In the south? Please, into the hall. All of you have a discussion.
We killed children mining in the south of Sweden. And I mean, we didn't ask for the people of Sweden. It's the people.
We'll have the meeting till 3. We'll occupy until 3 o'clock now here. And there will be a press conference very soon. The journalists will arrive. We will have a press conference about the ERT and our vision on it.
No, I'm sorry, but
We cannot negotiate about it. It's 3 o'clock.
I'm not negotiating either. I'm not accepting that our office gets invaded. I really don't.
I understand perfectly well.
If you don't follow me downstairs, I will actually call the police. I'm quite firm about that. We're not having any press conference up here. We have a meeting room downstairs. We'll sit down and talk to you.
I would regret it if you call the police, but I mean, it's of course.
Well, could we all move out of this?
No, we're not moving.
Say cheese.
To the left, to the right.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
Dissent and protest are part of a democratic society and part of our heritage. A lot of the rights that we currently respect, for instance, the rights to vote, the rights of vote, particularly for women, were established as a result of pressure, which include direct action. That's part of our heritage. That's the way we get new rights. That's the way the current provisions are challenged, and that's part of a democratic society.
Only recently released from prison, Mahatma Gandhi leaves Bombay on the SS Rajputana to attend the Roundtable Conference on Indian Independence called by Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald.
Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
Ah, look at the little one!
The bill is extremely significant because it criminalises what hitherto has been lawful activity by protesters, and it reduces the scope for protesters. With the new bill, protesters will be only able, for example, to wave placards on one side of the road, while at the other side of the road, diggers will be digging up large chunks of earth. People will only be able to write to MPs. A very limited amount of protest will be left after the bill's passed.
3, 2, 1, wake
So they could ban assemblies in Hyde Park, ban assemblies in Trafalgar Square, ban assemblies anywhere on using this vague concept. And that's really, really problematic, because the assembly only needs to have 20 people, and then those powers then apply.
Another part of the bill that's not very publicised, it's really worrying, is the police, they propose, will be given the power to grant bail, which is very new. It's always been the case that it has to go to court and the magistrates grant bail. What could happen in combination with the aggravated trespass legislation is that they could break up a demonstration, arrest everyone, then process them on the spot and give them bail conditions not to protest. That's it, end of demonstration.
No ifs, no buts, fight the education cuts. No ifs, no buts, fight the education cuts. No ifs, no buts, fight the education cuts.
Preventing someone going in and out of the town hall as part of their work will actually be an offence, providing you are actually trespassing. That's the real problem. It's a much more wide-ranging and draconian provision than it needs to be, and of course it's going to criminalise trade union protests, environmental protests, consumer protests, any kind of protest where a person is intentionally or unintentionally trespassing, in other words, on some land that doesn't belong to them or where they haven't got consent of the landowner.
If people don't fight back, they get disheartened and they tend to start scapegoating, and that's why you see things like the rise in racism, the BNP getting into power or getting elected councillors in Millwall. And if you have children fighting together for what they believe in, for what they need, for their future, well then that's the best thing that can happen. If that means going against Public Order Act, well I don't care, because it's going to be complete public disorder in a few years if people don't fight back for what they need.
Welcome to Westminster. This used to be Artillery Mansions, which is 411 flats that have been empty for 18 years. It's in Westminster area where their official policy has been to be mean and nasty to homeless people.
We're going to sing some songs and make a hearth where people can come and shelter from the weather. And this time when the laws are changing, rather dramatically, stretch your wings.
and fly. Be free to dream your dreams and make your dreams become the day.
There are 868,000 registered empty buildings in this country. There's about 600,000 homeless people, according to a government estimate. That's ridiculous. We need to be able to put homeless people into empty buildings, and they could start with self-help schemes, fixing the places up, lifting themselves back up.
Yeah, but you shouldn't be in, man. You know what we invited.
Thank you. The next stage is that on top of this we are trying to organise some sort of shelter for all the homeless people who are sleeping out on the streets at the moment. Now last night we had 12, 14 people who would have spent the night on the street. They actually spent the night upstairs. Okay, can we warm. Cut through the political statements that you're making and for you to indicate to me what your intentions are? I was working on my intentions. Now. Our intentions are that we hope to build on that, and maybe within a week we'll be actually providing a shelter or space for perhaps 20, 30 people.
Originally I came down looking for work, but if you've not got a place, a dress over your head, or a roof over your head with a dress, you've no hope of getting a job. You understand? No hope.
So this could give you an address?
Yeah, this gives you an address. Maybe go get work now. Gives you an address to go and get work. That's all you need, an address. And it's you.
So this place could be a stepping stone for
Of course it is.
To dream your dreams and make your dreams become the day. La 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 la. Free. Oh, coming for everyone. I think it's naive, but naivety's been around for a long time.
It's clear that legislation, government is getting further away from meeting basic people's needs. I don't know what kind of back to basics Mr. Major is on about, but I believe that food, water, shelter, those are the kind of back to basics that we need in this country before we start spending billions on weaponry and such like ridiculousness.
We're part of a growing feeling in this country. We saw it yesterday at M11 that is saying, whoa, hold on, we're not going to play this game, enough is enough, we can do it ourselves. Green grassroots culture, DIY culture, can do it, and it's starting, and this is another little part of it.
These laws affect everybody. People who are coming together to just try and bring people together in parties and festivals and to bring together all different cultures and races to dance together in peace. What is the harm in that?
Fuck DJ Murder House.
If a police constable believes that you are on your way to a gathering, you can be stopped and told to proceed anywhere outside a 5-mile zone of the site. You will be committing a criminal offence if you play amplified music, including sounds wholly or predominantly characterised by the omission of a succession of repetitive beats. So I guess that's goodbye to Ravel's Bolero, guys. I suppose because no one in the government has ever felt the inclination to let what's left of their hair down at a rave, so they don't see why anybody else should want to either. They have this strange notion that if we are left to our own devices, that we will want to commit crime, and nothing can be further from the truth. Yes, we do like loud music and we like to stay up all night long and dance. Yes, we do like to get muddy. We do like to meet up with our friends. Some of us do have silly haircuts, but does it really matter? Should we be branded criminals and imprisoned for it? Why not recognise that it takes all kinds to make a world and that everyone deserves some form of respect and consideration, if only because they are fellow human beings?
And you will have a situation, if these new laws come in, where they can arrest people for parking up on common land, which they brought in, it's the last of the Enclosure Acts. People have had common land to share in common for thousands of years, forever since this planet was here. All the land is here for everyone. But in the last few hundred years, a few greedy people have come together and they've said, no, it's not everybody's planet to share. It's just a few people's and we own it, and you can't share it with us.
How aware is the public of the many small groups that live peacefully in the country all year round? This film is intended to give you an insight into our life on the road and to draw attention to the government's new proposals to criminalise it overnight. The police and county council will be given powers to evict us from private and council land after 24 hours, powers to impound or destroy our homes, and our children and animals will go into care. We will also get a criminal record. At the same time, the government intends to abolish their duty to provide us with legal sites.
I mean, yeah, a lot of travellers are travellers because the government policies, whatever government, has denied, has made it difficult for people to find housing or to find work. And so some of them have the initiative to make that for themselves. Instead of a house, they go for a bus or a caravan and try and eke a life out as best they can. And everybody says, you've dropped out of society. Well, I'm sorry, but society has let me down.
The thing that I'm really concerned about is this matter of the new bill and how it affects human rights.
Yes, so am I, because I feel it's very draconian. And you have to remember that these people, they haven't got a vote because of their lifestyle. They keep moving around, so they're not registered on the electoral roll. Their children haven't got a proper education, so in a sense they're being handicapped. But if this bill is enacted, we could end up dispossessing them of their homes, which are their vans and their lorries, splitting up the family, because a lot of it, often we have to give bed and breakfast accommodation, which is not satisfactory.
For children.
And for the children, for a government that believes in the family, we're going to be destroying the family units. And so this isn't really the answer.
If these laws do come in and they take effect, then we're not actually going to, it's not going to alleviate any problem. It's going to make the homeless problem much bigger.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's going to be much more noticeable because there are, I don't know how many, 60,000 travellers in this country.
60,000 squatters.
And 60,000 people in squatting houses because there's no houses for them to live in. And, you know, these people have all got to be housed. They've all got to go somewhere. And by making it a criminal act to live in a caravan, takes away that one option that we do have.
It must be seen that New Age travellers are a social problem requiring positive solutions To persecute a group of people without a will to understand or offer an alternative is unacceptable in this democratic country. Many authorities have expressed great reservations over the bill, especially those that must pick up the debris of the bad government legislation. Instead of providing land with a tap, dustbin and toilet, we will have our homes taken away and families separated. We are expected to pay for this indignity or go to prison. We are the children of mainstream society, a society that has failed to provide adequate housing or employment and would punish us for reminding them so.
Excuse me, what are you doing?
I'm getting money.
Are you getting money?
Yes.
Is this how you make a living?
Oh, it's one way of making a living, yeah.
Does it pay?
On days, yes, I have had £35 on here on some days.
You're joking.
No.
And it's just people dropping coins down through there?
People dropping coins down here, yes.
And you see the coins and then you fish for them?
Yes. There's a pound coin down here at the moment.
A pound coin, wow. Are there many people who do this sort of thing?
Apparently there's about 6 people who do it around Oxford at the moment.
Is there a name for this profession?
Draining.
Draining.
That's
what you do. Why can't you just pull these things out?
Because as you can see, you have to have a set spanner to lift them out, to be able to undo them, and then you can lift them up. But unless you have the set spanner, you can't get no chance. So you need a couple of knives, or one person goes around and uses scissors. Other people use lollipop sticks. Me, just use these because they don't fall in.
What about a magnet? Wouldn't that work?
Money is not magnetic. So subsequently I have to keep going like this.
And is this the best opportunity you have for making a living?
Well, yes, because toll money doesn't stretch far enough. So it's the only way to make a bit extra that's legal, that I can. So I do it.
Have you tried employment of any other kind?
I can't work. I suffer from blackouts, so I can't work. So I have to do this.
Can't you get invalidity pay?
Invalidity pay? Don't really know what invalidity pay is. I know what dole is, and income support. But invalidity pay, I get paid by income support, and that's, as far as I know, is what I'm entitled to.
You haven't spoken to your dole officer to see if there's a...
Dole officer? What's one of them? All I know is I have to go in, sign on a dotted line, and I get my gyro. And that's it. So to make up extra money, I come and do this. I'm out there, I say 6 days a week I'm out doing the drains. Monday morning is not worth doing it on a Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays and Saturdays. On Sunday, because of course you got the Saturday night revellers out. And when they're out at night, sometimes they're so drunk that they drop a few quid down the drain. I'm out then on the Sunday picking it up. And the most I've had on one day is, like I said, I've had £35 on one day. And I was very chuffed with that. Very chuffed.
Do you enjoy the work?
Well, I meet a few different characters. I get on well with the busmen. If the busmen, sometimes they've dropped money down there and they've gone to me, oh, look, there's a pound coin down here. I get it out and I give them the pound coin and they give me 50 pence back. So in the long run, the busmen even make money out of me. You know, it's an honest way of making a few bob. And that's how I go. That's me.
Thanks a lot.
That's all right.
Media has a role in making people aware of the issues that we're talking about and hopefully asking people to take action. But the main thing is to pursue the issue. The main thing is to stop that forest being logged or to stop that road going through, because we're in such a dire situation now. The main thing is the action rather than the media element of it.
You need media attention, otherwise you don't exist. That's just a fact. If you're not on television or if you're not in the newspapers, then you don't exist. And I think the experience shows that direct, non-violent or violent action gets media attention. So it's probably the only way to change the world.
The demonstration. Grim warning. The climate. The protest. Damage to the occupation. The demonstration. Protesters. People who lift up a ship. Others blocked of mahogany.
But I think direct action by environmental groups doesn't really fit into the media. A few years ago it might have done. If a group had rung up and said we're going to do a stunt, we might well have gone and covered it. I think we don't now. Largely because we think if they're going to do something of that sort, it's their business for their supporters. It is not news in itself.
They very often expect us to perform like performing seals, like to sort of clap our hands and balance balls on our noses for the sake of providing them with a little bit of footage. In many cases, for example, I've been in protests where the media actually even position the people, saying, no, you stand over here, this is what you say. For them actually to then turn around and say, no, we don't want you to do that anymore, is really rather outrageous.
We thought we'd need a bit more publicity than we were getting, so I phoned up ITN and said to them, hello, my name's John Robertson, and there's a big timber demonstration on Monday, and I'm going to immolate myself. And so ITN said, great, fantastic, where's it going to be? And I said, it's going to be outside this big timber yard outside Oxford. And they said, right, and what time exactly, John, are you going to immolate yourself? And so I told them. And they said, right, great. Now, just a few personal details. You've got wife, children, you're a family man. And so I gave them all the spiel. They said, right, I think we'll be there. So with luck, they'll be around tomorrow.
A student worker is recovering in hospital after being trapped under a lift in North London. He jumped from the lift as it was moving because he thought it was overloaded and would plummet to the ground. As he did so, he slipped and became wedged underneath. The 22-year-old was given emergency treatment at the scene. There were fears he was seriously hurt, but he escaped with bruising.
Well, coincident with the rise in direct action, we've got the first generation growing up that have always had television in their lives. I remember a time when I didn't have a television at home when I was small, and people just 5 years younger than me, they know how to read television. They know what kind of thing gets on television, what kind of stunt is needed, and they're beginning to actually use the media rather than let the media use them.
I went down to film the anti-M11 campaign in Leytonstone, and I filmed the activists there who were trying to protect the houses from being knocked down. And I hadn't used a camera for a long time, and I borrowed my friend's Hi8 camera, and he gave me a 10-minute lesson, and I went out in the streets and had a practice before I went down. And I filmed for about 3 or 4 hours, and I came back home and rang the local news stations and got it onto BBC South East and the ITV London Tonight programme that evening, which is really exciting. Campaigners told me that actually it changes the nature of the action when the police and the bailiffs and so on know there's a camera watching them.
The greatest problem that we've had is actually in getting the message out to the public. And one way that we can do that is try and go through the conventional media, but of course that gets harder and harder because you've always got to find a new angle and a new story. So what we've tried to do is actually to put together our own news and our own materials and our own videos and to really get that out as cheaply as we can. Now, this has gone a long way in the States, and we're just starting here in Britain. We've just put together a documentary that we made ourselves on a budget of £50, which is extraordinarily cheap for a documentary. That we're producing at cost price and distributing very, very widely. That's one way of going. I'd love to see, for example, things like video mail shots, where instead of getting some piece of printed paper through a post, people get a video that they can slot in and watch. Now, this is the way to go. And if the media don't cover these issues, we just simply have to provide our own media.
Well, in Clayoquot Sound in Canada, the activists I saw were totally switched on about how to use the media. They had a full team of people taking still photographs, video photographs, recording footage for radio, interviewing people and taking notes. And within an hour of the action finishing, every single day, they were back in the office, on the phones, hammering away, getting the issue into the media. They realised that these things are no longer a secret. Anybody can do this that knows a little bit about the media, and they were tremendously successful.
Action speaks louder than words. Action speaks louder than words.
Hello. Can I talk to you very briefly? What do you think of the traffic in this city?
It's appalling. It really is appalling. I hate it. I hate coming into Oxford unless I'm working here.
Do you think something ought to be done about it?
Yes, definitely. I'm sure it's why we all have chest infections. It's notorious in the Oxford district for people to suffer from chest infections, asthma. Just ask any of the doctors, they'll tell you.
What do you think of the traffic here in Oxford?
Well, it's all right, except at peak times.
What do you think is causing the problem?
Just the number of cars coming into the centre.
Do you think they should continue to come into the centre, or do you think that that's a problem in itself?
I think you can't avoid them coming into the centre until one gets a better parking light system, possibly.
Thank you.
As far as I can tell, they need to get rid of it in the centre there. I mean, in Cheltenham, where we are, it's all pedestrianised. It's really nice, lots of seats, lots of trees, things like that. And it'd be nice if Oxford was about the same.
How did you come here yourself today?
We drove.
It isn't only Oxford, though, it's the whole country. Traffic is spoiling the whole country, isn't it? It's a pity they can't do something about the traffic by a ring road and a really efficient... Well, they've got a park and ride here, but it's not efficient. They certainly need to do something.
What do you think of the traffic in the city centre?
It's terrible. It should ban cars.
Yeah, all cars?
Yeah, oh well, apart from residents.
I take it you're a resident?
Yeah.
So, ready to go? Go on the front! Ready, go! Oxford is cooking! Cars out of the city centre! Cars out! Cars out! People are being killed every year by private cars in the centre of Oxford. There are something like 20 or 30 people a year dying of the effects of pollution in Oxford. 1 in 7 children in Oxford has asthma as a result of the private car. Now, I put it to you that by preventing moves to get rid of the private cars swiftly and effectively, you're actually implicated in the deaths of these people.
Well, that's a very emotive thing, and I think you would have difficulty saying that the people that whatever reason they die from, of general medical ailments, particularly children, can be related to car transport in
Oxford. A new American study shows that 10,000 people a year are dying in Britain as a result of particulates released by motor vehicles. Oxford is one of the most polluted city centres in the country.
Yes, so this is not unacknowledged. The actual transport study does say that we will go on in the fullness of time when the other measures to maintain the vitality, the attractiveness and the access to people actually need to come into Oxford for shopping, for work, for all sorts of commercial activities. And if you don't want to make the place into a museum, surely.
Councillor, surely we want to make it into a place which is fit for human beings to live in and isn't a poisoned soup as people pass through the city centre.
Agreed. We're not disagreed about the objectives. So I think the main problems and arguments going on is that the rate at which this takes place.
And you're procrastinating while other people are trying to get it done fast?
No, I am actually doing it so other parts of the city won't congest up and come to a complete standstill.
But now, the city's already coming to a complete standstill. It's already becoming incredibly congested. And you are fiddling while Rome burns. I mean, we've got a crisis here and you're not doing anything about it.
We have a peak hour problem during most of the day. Where do you think the congestion is occurring?
Well, it's all over the place. You have to go through the centre of Oxford to see it. It's in Longwall Street, it's in the High Street, it's even in Broad Street, so surely that should be a pedestrian zone.
Well,
It's all over the city centre. And outside the town hall in our city centre, we have higher levels of pollution than on the Cromwell Road in London. Now, surely that's a shocking figure. Surely you should be doing something about it right now instead of promoting the car culture in Oxford.
Well, I would still dispute the amount of congestion that occurs outside of peak hours. Now, there is a problem in peak hours. Now, one of the things, for instance, in North Oxford that could be done to remove the congestion in North Oxford is to actually build what is called the Tin Hat Scheme, the relief for the A40.
You think more roads is a solution to more cars?
Not in all cases, but in some circumstances.
So you're promoting more cars, more roads, you think that this is a way forward? You think that more pollution, you think that more traffic accidents is a way forward for Britain? Don't you think that's a rather 1970s attitude, Councillor?
No, that is what the people want to do. Now, if you say, well, the people that have got cars have got to use them less, now what are you going to say to the people that haven't got a car?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? This is the problem that only 40% of people actually have cars in this country, and that the remainder of people can't get anywhere because those selfish 40% are choking out the roads.
No, that figure is wrong. It's 60% of 66% of households now have at least one car.
Households have access to a car. We're talking about difference between that and car ownership. We can bandy statistics backwards and forwards, Councillor. As you know, people are dying every year. The health situation of people is getting worse and worse as time goes on.
Well, no, that is free choice. People, this is a phenomenon of the 20th century. People are actually, they decided they wanted to buy a car. I don't tell people.
When I cycle down the high street, I don't have any choice as to whether I'm breathing in pollution or not. That's not a question of free choice.
I don't tell people to go and buy a car. They do that of their own volition.
Well, how can I, as a non-car driver, stop other people from having one and stop other people from polluting me?
Why should you?
Because I'm being polluted, my health is being affected. I might be one of those 10,000 people a year who die of the results of pollution in Britain.
Well, we're looking to central Oxford to make it, to improve the environment of central Oxford. There's no argument about that. But I mean, in all these matters has to be a balance. People and goods need and desire and decide they will move around the country. I mean, you're almost projecting a sort of siege economy.
You're talking about goods all of a sudden. I thought we were talking about private cars. I thought we were talking about a very few people using these big tin boxes to fill up Oxford High Street, whereas pedestrians and cyclists and people like that can't move around because of all the cars and because of all the pollution.
Well, 2 years' time, two and a half years' time, that may well be the case, that there will be absolutely no cars there at all, and there'll still be buses.
But surely not thanks to your efforts, because I'm told by the City Council that you have been delaying it. You have been holding it back. It's you who's responsible for the procrastination.
No, me personally or the whole of the County Council?
Well, you personally. I'm told that you are one of the main stumbling blocks.
Right. So that explains why my name is appearing on posters around Oxford City Street.
It would probably have something to do with
it.
Right.
We don't need this road anyway, because all it's doing is bringing more cars in to jam the city. But what they're making Wanstead into is a giant traffic jam and car park. It shouldn't be that. It's a lovely area, really. So all the people living around here, asthma, bronchial problems, are just going to increase 100-fold. And they've got doctors on the television telling them this every week, and they're still doing it. So I don't know what they've got for brains.
She's been told she wasn't to come over here. She was warned, and now she's then come back. All right, I've explained it to yourself.
Why have I been arrested for disorderly conduct?
Section 5 of the Public Order. All right, we told you not to come over here.
What's that got to do with Section 5 of the Public Order? What exactly have I done wrong?
This isn't a charismatic campaign like Twyford Down or Oxley's Wood, and yet they've continued fighting for years and years and years and years, and they've tried every opportunity, every route. They've gone to the High Court, to the European Commission. They've really fought this, and I just think they're such brave people. I've always had such admiration for the M11 people.
Land for the people, not for the roads! Land for the people, not for the roads!
You're all trespassing. I will now get my men to escort you off these premises.
You have to defy the law where it's wrong.
We're peaceful people!
This is peaceful. I'm not offering any resistance.
The Department of Transport is totally illegal, and a rule unto their own. That's my only by the way. I'm trespassing. They're knocking our homes down, and I'm trespassing.
If I want to be represented, I go to my ward councillors, well, they're all for the road. I can then go to my MP, where he's a Tory whip, and he certainly wants the road, even though he lives in Chelsea. So then I can go to the Ombudsman, and he will say, yeah, but it's all been decided through 3 public inquiries by the Secretary of State for Transport. But the Secretary of State for Transport devised the plan, and he judged it. So at the end of the day, we're being controlled by this process. And during all this time, the information is coming in thick and fast to suggest that they are blinkered and they are living in the past and carrying out an antiquated scheme.
When you start to kind of see the sorrow that the road's causing and the frustration and the anger, and you just start to see how completely ignored and brushed aside these people are by a very small group of men who are completely abusing their power, who sit in Parliament or are civil servants or are engineers who have cosy relationships with government officials, then you have no choice. You have to act, you have to do something, you have to drop whatever it is you're doing and get involved.
If you do direct action against the contractors and the security guards, effectively you're delaying them, and delay means costs. Sometimes they have contractual obligations to meet, and every time they are delayed, you're adding the pounds onto their contract.
To put yourself on the line, lying down in front of a bulldozer, chaining your neck to a bulldozer, risking your life, it's the truest form of expression. If you sincerely believe that something is wrong, then you know, the people here are amazing. They're so brave, putting themselves on the line again and again and again. What we hope to do is inspire people to say, you can try the legal system, by all means try it, but it will always fail you. If it fails you, it's still wrong. If it was wrong at the beginning, it's going to be wrong at the end. If it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. Carry through, you know, everything that you believe in. And people have been really inspired by what we've done at Twyford Down and at the M11. And, you know, the most surprising people all around the country are saying, yes, I'm going to lie down in front of the bulldozers too. It is an honourable tradition in this country.
Your actions are blocking this road, you're causing obstruction to the highway because of your activities. Will you please move? Or else I shall move you.
My apologies, I shall...
Don't be rough now. Hey, don't be rough. It is me, don't be rough like that. Okay, all right. I saw come on back, come on. That was out of order. That was out of order. Can I have your name? I didn't hurt her. You threw her on my fucking leg. I'm reporting. That's all right, you can report me, sir. I'm also going to receive proceedings.
You are going above
as an individual. You are meant to protect these people, not her. You threw her.
I have an absolute deep commitment to non-violence. You cannot fight violence with violence. What we are against is violence towards the planet. I see environmental destruction as the ultimate form of violence against the planet and against human rights all around the world. If you're opposed to it, you certainly don't fight using the same methods. We have won the arguments. We are right. I sincerely believe that. And we do not need to use violence. We must always retain the higher moral ground.
Don't worry about the videoing, yeah, we just do it so that when the police come and say you lot are being absolute bastards and being violent, we can say, well, actually, you know, we're not being violent.
So we just stand around that with fine.
Hi there. You all right?
I'm fine.
What's going on? What's up?
Stopping the surveying, basically.
Stopping the surveying.
Or standing on a public footpath, whichever way you want to describe it.
You know about the new legislation that's been passed stopping men carrying out the lawfully abetted work? Sorry? You know it's against the law to stop people carrying out the normal work and practice?
Not against the law to stand on a footpath, though.
No, it's not, but you're obstructing, aren't you?
Am I? He can work. I'm not. If he wants to work around me, he can work around me. I'm just walking on a footpath. I'm standing on a footpath. I'm perfectly
There's lots of
entitled to
various
do that.
legislation. It's yet to be proved in court. I mean, yeah, I agree. It's not. We will cause a breach of the peace by standing here, and you will get arrested for breach of the peace.
What if I was waiting for a coach or something?
This is the last warning.
This is not
really?
This is the last.
Just a peaceful approach.
They want to go about their work peacefully, and you are preventing them. That will cause a breach of the peace. It has been held up that to prevent a workman by going about his business, his lawful work, I will find the case for you and I will show you a copy of it. Can you go and bring it? Before I do that, I'd like you to move out of the way, please.
We're not obstructing anybody. We're on a public highway. And we have every right to be on a public highway.
A chance to have a cigarette. Okay.
It's very difficult for them to improve their condition legally. They have, as you say, weighted against them really all the arms of the state. They have the police, the Crown Prosecution Service, the courts, the Department of Transport, the contractors, Westhol's security, private security firms. Those organisations have power, have money, have rights, have access to the media, and against them, it's difficult to fight against them when you have none of the resources available.
You're going to be violent towards me for standing on the footpath.
It doesn't have to be violent. No, it does not have to be violent.
What does he have to do then?
He does not have to have any violence towards you.
So what's he going to do?
A breach of the peace can be occurred without violence.
No, it can't. That's
Yes,
not true. R.V. Howell has to have violence.
Would you keep out of the way so that they can get on with their work?
The case R.V. Howell states that there has to be violence involved.
It doesn't have to be.
They intend to keep this a bottleneck forever, because they cannot control the traffic into and out of London now. If the traffic increases by 142% by 2025, then they will never be able to cope with it. So they really have no long-term strategy.
The Link Road runs alongside Cambridge Park, under Blakehall Road, goes under the new Green Man interchange, crosses the Central Line, and then runs alongside the Central Line through Leytonstone and Leighton.
People are coming round in the morning with sledgehammers. So I'm told, it's like official. I haven't had any correspondence with them. The only thing I can do to remain in my own home is to barricade my own home up, which you can see. Move all your stuff over in the corners and barricade it up. Destroy your own house against people who say they're coming here and going to take me out of my house and I don't even know who they are. This is a handcuff. This is what you have to do to try and stay in your house when they're coming in here to take you out. One of us puts a hand in this side, one in the other side, click a small handcuff in the middle so as our hands are joined. That's the only way as a last resort that we can stay in here.
I know several people along the route, long-term residents, very, very well. Richard Leighton, who's lived here all his life with his mother, who's lived here all her life. She's 80 years old. She lived in this house all her life. And they want to bulldoze her out of it. She won't survive the move. And he's absolutely devastated.
Put it on the kettle. Tell all your friends. You shouldn't let him unless I've got a broom.
This is just sheer
vandalism.
This house has been like this for 2.5 years.
Shit.
2.5 years. They could have had someone living here for 2.5 years. One of the things that they say is that these houses aren't fit for human habitation, and that's not true. All the damage that's been done to these houses has been done by the Ministry of Transport. When they get in, the first thing they do is, when they get the people evicted, one of the first things they do is they come in and they cut joists and trash floorboards and just basically try to make the house as unappealing and as horrible as they can make it. And that's vandalism. I inhabit one of those houses. There's a letter explaining that the properties have been legally squatted. Any agents working on behalf of the MOT or any of the subcontractors or anybody employed by any of their subcontractors will not be gained admission. The police have been here. Those houses are legally occupied. I'm asking you to leave. There's no reason for you to be here. If you refuse to leave, I will ring the police and ask them to come down and ask you to leave, because in my opinion, being here is behaviour likely to incite a breach of the peace.
Look, it's the man with no court order again.
Should we
you try going
Where's his court order? Where's his court order? Where's his court order? Officer, where's his court order?
Where does he live?
We've got...
It's reasonable time for the lawyer to get here with the order from the court, saying that the place is served.
Who pays your wages?
There's a bloke here with a whole load of possessions just in the corridor and he needs to get them out. Can you please open the door and let him take his stuff out?
That's all we're asking.
We're not going to come in now, are we? You've done your business. Let the guy have his stuff, for God's sake.
Nothing to do with the department.
Listen, we're trying to, that is what we're trying to negotiate
That's what I'm sitting here for.
Yeah, we need to get this stuff out.
Sorry, mate.
We need to get this stuff out. This guy's got...
I want to go out, I'll go out.
Yeah, try and get in your way. Why don't you get out?
That's all right, okay, that's all I want to do is get out, thank you.
Right, the premises has been taken over by the DOT.
Yeah, can we see some paperwork?
We'd have to ask the DOT for it.
Well, so you just accept it because the DOT say they own the good and they can have it?
Look, you've asked me a question and I've given you an answer. If you don't like the answer, that's your problem, all right?
Is it my problem?
It's the DOT.
Well, it's JL16's problem. He's acting on something that he doesn't know is true. But you're allowing someone to board up a house and you don't even know if they're the owners. So if I kicked in the front door now and said, it's all right, I work for the DOT, it'd be all right. Because you say, oh, that's a civil matter, don't bother me, mate. I'm asking you a question. Well, are you? I'm asking. Just because DOT say they own it, you've just accepted it, have you? Where's the proof? Where's the paperwork? Because that's what this world really needs, is lots of paperwork, isn't it?
This house has been reoccupied. Did you appreciate that?
Sorry?
This house has been reoccupied, so whatever they're doing in there, they're doing illegally. And you're just going to stand there and let them do it?
This house has been repossessed by the Department
From one group of people. Another group of people went in this morning. Why weren't your chaps actually arresting the security guard who threatened the woman next door this morning? And who threatened another of these chaps with a hammer? If that person would like to direct any complaint to Leighton Police Station... They've already done it, and nothing's been done. That's why I'm going to court this afternoon, in about 5 minutes, which also looks like I'm going to have to go to court on this, which is ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous.
You're hitting your head all the time against a brick wall, but don't let that put you off, because that's what they try and do. They put you off with promises and pretty pictures and half-truths, or lies, and you've got to be prepared for that. And also be aware of what's going on elsewhere so that hopefully you can draw in other people. I mean, I think that's very important to get cross-references of groups everywhere, because throughout the South now this is happening. And if everybody from all those groups sort of marched on Parliament, it would have a tremendous effect, wouldn't it?
The problem is going to get worse. Protests is going to get bigger. The car culture's growing constantly. Protests coming together all throughout Europe. This is just the first stage.
Around the tree, we built the tree house and we had the fire at the bottom, and a group of us gathered there most evenings and played music and kind of just talked, and it was a kind of, and it really drew people in from all around the kind of area. We all kind of got together, and people from the local area actually started talking to people, you know, next door neighbours who hadn't spoken to each other for years and years, started communicating again, and it kind of became a kind of focal point for a community.
There is light, the soon we'll all be dead, on the never-ending
and there were people living in the tree, but North West Hall surrounded the green and the treehouse with an 8-foot fence and wouldn't allow anyone into the treehouse. But we suddenly realised the nature of what they were doing. They were taking away something that really belonged to everyone, and it was kind of quite a really powerful kind of moment of realisation. And everyone looked at these fences and just thought, God, they've just got to go. And so we just suddenly had, very spontaneously, 150 people started pushing down these fences, which was no mean task. I mean, these were 8-foot fences dug about 3 feet into the ground. It wasn't a kind of a group of angry anarchists. It was just an alliance of environmentalists and a huge majority of local people. And there was this woman, she must have been about 70. She was just going, pushing this fence, and it was brilliant. Because the day before I'd seen her in the health food shop and she'd been crying because she'd seen the fence around the tree, and this was her moment where she could kind of vent her frustration and actually claim back what was obviously hers. And so that was the turning point, because I think that was the point at which any kind of division between people from the outside and local people, just suddenly dissolved. Everyone knew that they were really fighting for exactly the same thing, and a really strong bond developed between everyone that was there on that day, even though many of us had never met each other or known each other before.
I think it's a shame that these people have got to go to all this to get their little say about that horrible road that's coming here. And they're taking all these beautiful trees away. And that tree over there is 400 years old, and they couldn't care less. A little bit extra. I'm annoyed to think that I got suspended for what, I believe in. I believe in the environment and doing something about the environment. And to my mind, that was me expressing myself, going down to the tree and dressing it. And I went in my uniform because I represent the children. And really, I represent the roads as well, because I work on the roads every day, and seeing the traffic and seeing one person in a car, it seems so ridiculous to me why they can't sort something out with the transport.
Today we made case history. The first time ever that a tree has been qualified or classified by the law and by a High Court judge as a dwelling. It was the guy who wrote, I don't know if you've seen the letter, from Cheshire. This guy wrote a letter to the people in the tree, and they've even got a letterbox in the tree, right? In a door, front door on the tree, proved it was a dwelling, right? That proved our case that it was a dwelling, it wasn't a joke.
This is now classed as a dwelling. You've already been given a number of copies. Do you want another one?
Yeah.
Your men refused to hold it earlier. All your men have been served. Okay? Granted last night at 6 o'clock by High Court Judge Tuckey.
Just read the notice.
Right. Well, what I would suggest is your men leave and stay in their compound.
Okay, well, we're going downtown to have a look around the shops and get some money out of the bank. Okay, see
All
you
right.
later, Jack.
Well, you have a good morning.
This
time of night, bye-bye.
We've got you provisionally marked, if you'd be happy, as being a branch on the phone tree. Is that okay?
So we have ready to come and help us something like 200 people, mostly local people. It works on the basis that you phone 3 people, they phone another 3. It just cuts your workload down, and you can do it very quickly. And they're prepared to come out at any hour of the day or night to come and defend the place.
Do is ring 3 numbers. Are you happy to do that? If I give you 3 numbers. Brilliant, that's very good of you.
What are you going to do today?
Well, we're going to stop and talk them through them.
How are you going to do it?
Well, 4 of us are chained together around the tree using these steel tubes that you can see here, and we're locked together inside the tube, so they can't move us unless they hacksaw through the tubes, which is going to take them some hours.
Question was, what do you do if you get nicked, basically? Do you give your name and address? The answer is yes, but nothing more. The words no comment are all I want to hear from anybody's mouth.
The gripe I've got is that there were 250 police on that green, each with the power of arrest, and they stood there and watched the sheriff's bailiffs punch, kick, hit the protesters, who offered no violent resistance at all. And why? The United Nations Bill of Human Rights, Article 7 says everybody has a right to protection by the law, and the police did not protect the protesters, so they were failing in their duty.
I think one of the most poignant things is the way the police support anything the security guards do, but completely ignore anything we do. For example, if a security guard arrests me, at any point they can arrest me and just say that I've done something, criminal damage, for example. The police will instantly put me in a police van, take me off, lock me up for the night, process me, and then I'll be out and I'll go to the magistrate's court and almost definitely be found guilty on the saying of the security guards. Now, if I was to citizen's arrest a security guard, and I even had evidence at hand, and I've done it, the police just ignore you and say, write a complaint. And so that shows the kind of the relationship. It's a very, very uneven one.
Don't do it, officers! Don't do it! Support us! We'll support you if they try to privatise you!
And I say very, very firmly that the police are acting politically here. They are not acting impartially. They are not acting in an even-handed way. They are acting in a political way to bulldoze through government policy. That is not their job, and it really distresses me to see in a so-called democracy the police acting in such an openly political way as this and abusing people's rights. You know, it's because you're a protester doesn't mean that you don't have any rights, that you're a criminal.
We bloody live here. We gotta have the bloody road, you don't. Why don't you piss off where you bloody came from? Your children will see it, and they'll leave you. You'll be there in your old age with your empty eyes.
A tree, storms, wars, bombs. 300 years, the tree still stands. A road, a crane, a matter of hours. the tree stands no more. The tree has fallen, humiliated, rotting, eventually forgotten. Cars, noise, pollution, yet another step towards extinction. What's it matter anyway? What's a tree compared to millions of pounds? It's done with now, nothing to worry about. It's all over until the next time a tree gets in the way of progress. All that is left is a single question. At which tree do we stop?
I'm actually going to court this afternoon, not to face my first eviction. Basically, I was asked on the 30th of December to leave this property, or at least my brother was, because he is actually the leaseholder. I left rather reluctantly because I thought that would suit his convenience, but I was very happy to say that after we'd actually left the house, some very kind squatters moved in from the No M11 Link Road campaign, and I thought to myself, they seem a nice bunch, so I moved back in with them. So I think that this house represents quite a lot, because up in a little office I used to type away letters, which was almost the birth of Wanstead against the M11 Link Road, and it's got a lot of fond memories right from the early days when I didn't know anything about it, and I watched houses all the way along the street being compulsory purchased and knocked down over 15 years, and I was too busy travelling that terrible tube up to London backwards and forwards to even notice what was going on in my locality.
I'm a student, I've come up from Brighton. There was just like, you know, one of the other students told us about what was happening down here tonight. So we took a couple of cars up. We've been having like a lot of like trouble like being students with student grants and stuff. And like, you know, we just want to help out anyone that's like fighting back, you know.
A lot of hard work's gone into this, into barricading this room over the past week and a half. This wall here has been barricaded and the cavity filled with concrete, and the same with that wall there. And the windows have been filled with concrete, and the ceiling has been heavily barricaded, and rafters have been put in place to secure all the barricades.
Yeah, the memories of the house, I mean, 13 years is a long time. If you look at it, it's quite a grand house, but they'll be coming in the morning. All we can do is what we're doing. We'll fight them all the way.
We think you're all really nice people!
Hi Mum, it's Becca. Hiya, have you heard all the news? Oh, it's happening. It's happening in a really, really big way. There's 800 police here. It's happening in a really, really big way. If you switch on the news and switch on the radio, and you'll be able to hear it.
of this rough. What you do with that bird, Sharon? On the road.
Come on, grab the bag. Grab the bag.
All right, come on, chaps.
Well, careful.
Watch yourself, man. Watch yourself. Right, come on.
One bailiff and 50 road protesters. Thank you very much.
Good boy.
Really great.
Come again tomorrow. Yeah, we'll get through there.
Excuse me. That's probably easier there. Just watch the floor, it's a bit dodgy. Just stand on the girders, mate.
Don't let him through there, he'll just start taking the stuff off.
Oh, sure.
Oh, well, never mind.
Well, we'll negotiate for you. How about that? Be a good negotiation. Okay, cool. Bailiffs don't get overtime. Yeah.
Apparently 12, 15 people on the roof of this house. They're still there.
We're running around and having a good time.
Yeah, we keep thinking it's the bailiffs.
Yeah. We keep thinking, this is it, they're coming in, man. But they're not.
There's a lot of people on the roofs number 10 and number 12, and they've got two cherry pickers working on taking them off, but it's a very, very slow business. It's going to get really, really hectic. I mean, basically they're like clearing the houses out of all the people who aren't locked onto things. There's about 8 people in one house locked on and about 4 in another house, and then there's 2 of us in this house.
For criminal damage, willful harm.
You're going to die.
Drop your bag!
Hey, stop it, you mad! There's a window. Ask you to release yourselves, if not, I'm afraid we'll have to use force.
As to what?
Like pulling your arm out until you release it yourself.
That window's concreted.
Yeah.
These are handcuffs and they're clipped shut.
Yeah, the gentleman outside had handcuffs on, but he could release them himself. So I'm asking you, do you want to release it yourself, or do you want to suffer pain until you release it yourself? Because we can use a necessary amount of force.
What you mean it's painful for us?
It will be painful. It won't be painful for me.
You sure it won't?
Do you enjoy doing it?
I don't enjoy it at all. That's why I'm giving you, if I enjoyed it, I'd just yank your arms out, wouldn't I? I'm giving you the option.
I work for an independent film company.
Yeah, that's all right.
I just want to film so that I can show what actually happens in here.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, now I've seen you leave. But being in such a confined space, you'll be hindering our duty, so I'm going to ask you to leave.
Because minimal force means that they can give us pay, and he said
You've
so.
got enough. I'm asking you to leave now, please.
Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey, 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 oh. Hey, 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 oh. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey, 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 hey.
This road scheme should go under review now. They should cut their losses while they can.
You know, the 350 houses they're bulldozing at the moment are still there. We can still regenerate the area in Leytonstone, and we can restore the green back. It'll never be the same, but to Wanstead. And I think that's the driving force for me. I won't say, oh, let them get away with this one. It's more reason that this one shouldn't go through, because they are starting to acknowledge that it's wrong. And if the government were actually to say, or the Department of Transport were to say, sorry, we made a mistake, I mean, they would receive so much credibility.
This doesn't just affect Wanstead. This isn't just East London. This isn't just England. It's a whole global issue, and people have got to get rid of this ridiculous idea of, you know, this is my little patch, bugger off.
It's self-made, though.
Christ almighty, get up to all these things, and most people can without crutches.
She goes on and on and on, you can't kill the spirit. She is like a mountain, old and strong. She goes on and on and on, you can't kill the spirit. She is like a mountain, old and strong. She goes on and on and on, you can't kill the spirit. She is like a mountain.